Hey Hada, there has been so much happening with Melee. Who better than to continue to rely on you to help me stay caught up, for me to try to do the same thing, although I know you always got the one up on me. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Just starting a good work week off. Hanging out. My girlfriend made me like a homemade like cookie skillet thing with like caramel peanut butter crumbled pretzel topping, and I'm about to devour that in a hot second. So it's gonna be great. But yeah, Melee's been crazy. We had summit developments. We had some leaked info from Ninja at the poker table. We've had combo videos come out. We've had birthdays. We've had a lot of stuff. And first and foremost, I'd love to say a happy belated birthday to my good friend Ginger, aka Avery. Super big homie from the Midwest. So shout outs to Luminosity's own Ginger, celebrating their birthday on the 30th. So super cool. Happy birthday, Avery. And then moving into a little more serious and to more direct news is something I really want to talk about is I really love our modding scene, and I think things like the Acania build with the volleyball opening up a lot of doors to how we can accentuate our love for Melee into a more creative atmosphere is now we have basketball Melee.
Mm-hmm.
So super cool modded game mode where you really can't kill off the sides or off the top. You can definitely kill off the bottom on the left and right side, and there's cannons that'll blast you into the abyss. And I think there's going to be a lot of cool stuff that comes out as a result.
See, the Melee players are just finding out about this, but Smash 64 has had this. They call it Smash Get Ball. If you ever play Smash 64 Remix, then you have already experienced this. What's fun about that, though, is that in both versions of this, in the Melee one that just got released, as well as the one in 64 Remix, it's completely enclosed except for the bottom. So yes, you can kill off the bottom. There are cannons that you can get trapped in and be killed along the bottom as well. But otherwise, for Melee, it's Tech City. Like, you can have
Oh
some
yeah.
really interesting things happen if you play the game enough. I'm sure you start to anticipate. I mean, there are people who make a living, Mango X Wednesdays. Every time they went to Hyrule Temple, I would always be flabbergasted how long Mango and Axe could live in the Cave of Life with teching. So I
Oh
think
yeah.
this will hopefully produce some fun footage in the semi near future of people just getting some ridiculous text off the ceilings and the walls. And I love
Mhm.
the concept of a slightly varied version. Volleyball's definitely different than this is still you're trying to kill your opponent. Volleyball is
Right.
definitely focused on, hey, you're hitting a ball back and forth in the enclosed environment.
Mhm.
But nonetheless, it's really cool to see stuff like that because there's also a build that is trying to take the PMEX engine that P Plus is built off of and trying to make an aesthetic Melee version of Project Plus while implementing all the
Mhm.
characters that are in P Plus, trying to make it as Melee like as possible. I see so many Melee mods that are just trying to stay Melee, adding on to different things. Obviously, Team Mechania comes to mind, but this is the
Mhm.
first time I've seen someone with a P Plus build, or a varied version of the P Plus build, saying we're gonna make it like Melee. So you could go back and forth. It's really, really cool, and I feel bad because off the top of my head, I do not remember the person who I retweeted it. I feel bad, but if you go on to David V. Kimball's Twitter, David V. Kimball's Twitter, you can see the trailer because he retweeted it and I retweeted
Mhm.
that tweet. So I
It
am so
was
sorry to the person
Izzo. It
who made the
was
build.
well, the person who tweeted the original trailer is what a great Twitter at. It's IKEA with Dilfs, aka Tizzo. Yeah, it's called the Smash Get Ball mod for Melee. It's I think it's through the Acania build. But regardless, it's definitely a really cool thing. And I've already discussed, I know that Kreestab, aka the owner and CEO of Conduit Gaming,
Mm-hmm.
and myself have already talked about separate occasions about making cool little side events for this. Is I currently have something in the works with the Colorado scene where I am developing a pro am double circuit. So whether
Ooh.
that be either just one big tournament, but there will be it's draft style, reverse draft, where players like Mango Slayer, Fizzwiggle will be picking last, and our lower seeded PR players will be picking first, and they'll be picking a Arcadian level doubles teammate, and then the winner will go to the spoils. And we're already talking about a Smash Get Ball side event for that tournament as well. So should be a really fun thing. It's developments for this summer. And so, guys, keep your eyes tuned. If you like doubles, if you like teams, Colorado for sure does. So definitely check that out. And yeah, I'd love to see some cool teams gameplay and kind of more on the line of tournament developments is something that I saw at Low Tide City. Not only did it have a wacky, insane top eight with Pipsqueak coming out, but in a pretty dominant fashion over the likes of Mech pulling an upset over Axe to claim second. But we've been seeing a pretty huge development in the conversation of timeouts and stalling, and our good friend Etost, who the proprietor of the JMOOC fan club, he developed and made all the JMOOC fan club shirts at Genesis. Tweeted out he was watching Absent Minded versus Pops, which is an Ices versus a Jigglypuff match, in which on Yoshi's story ended in a tie at 23% with 4 stocks each remaining. So they did a total of 46% in 8 minutes on Yoshi's story.
Yoshi's.
So on Yoshi's, which means they both were actively trying not to fight each other. Like it's hard not to like have at least some accidental interactions on Yoshi's story, regardless of what character you play. They were both playing in order to not play the game. And I'm definitely of the opinion that we play the game to play the game. So
Mhm.
whether or not this should result in rule set changes or proprietary bans or DQing both players from the tournament, like it's not good for the viewership experience. It's not good for the players. It's not good for the people who they're holding up bracket for.
Yes.
And it's not good for the TOs who like have to then be forced to make a decision after the fact because people's tournament lives are at stake. People's
So
tournament runs are at stake. And it's just not fair.
when I had Salt on for an interview, I looked up Salt's results leading up to our interview, and I said, "Who's this Pops player you lost to at a random local?" And he said, "No, no, no, you don't understand." Salt was telling me that at this local, he decides to go the Puff Ditto to try to legitimately out camp Pops, but can't do it. And then it's just like, you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna. Or actually, you know what? I might be getting players confused. It might be Haunter, who would have been, or one of the other players in bracket. You know what? Before I tangent too hard without completely remembering correctly, the point is that I know that Pops is one of the more local players in Texas, is of the same ilk of players like players of the past. I think it was Michael versus another Ices player for that famous
Michael versus Boyd. We've had
yes,
Faux Hebrew versus Chango. We've had Chudat versus Hungry Box. I mean, the list goes on and on. And Melee Stats actually has a really great video about this topic specifically. I believe it's the Bananas versus Michael storyline and their
yes.
rivalry. In which case, it's not much of a rivalry when I don't believe Bananas has ever taken a game off of Michael.
Oh,
But
poor
it's a
Bananas.
huge slap in the face to what does interactive gameplay really mean, and what do we value when it comes to playing to win versus abusing character limitations and for your own benefit. And I'm from the Midwest. I'm also originally from Texas, so I mean I have blood and I have skin in the game for Michael versus Bananas. But I will say it feels good to be a fan of Michael when they're ruthlessly camping ice climbers with a smile on their face and just knowing that they know like you can't do anything. But then as an Ohio player, then seeing my good friend Boyd beat Michael in a best of 5, game 5, and the set lasted like 45 minutes. It's just the most marvelous thing to ever see. And it's you know absolutely unheard of that an ice climber would ever beat a player like Michael, because not only is Michael so phenomenal at the game, he's also just so good at that defensive campy playstyle. And so it's definitely seeing a snowball in July in South Beach, Florida level of crazy. You know what I mean? So if you guys really want to see a development and a lot of great takes and a lot of great analytical conversation about the Peach Icy matchup, please go watch the mini doc that I believe Ambi Sinister made with the Melee Stats team. So super amazing video.
If you think about it, these are players that we're thinking about in particular who have a certain style where if they come across another floaty matchup that they don't like playing, or decide camping's the move, timeout is the move. I say you kind of go at the player as compared to saying rule set change, rule set change. I think that there's a decent amount of old heads in the Melee community still, people who've been around since before the Slippy era, at the very least. If not, a lot of players that are still active even around the time of being a doc kid or before the doc became a thing. So there are people who say leave the game alone as much as possible, but then there are other people who are saying why can't we just we have the technology. I saw the Fizzy tweet where he said, because of Slippy, we can literally see who is closest to center stage. Maybe the person holding center stage the most gets to win. And that by default encourages certain amount of engaging, because if you are not close to center stage, which your opponent is, you have to approach. Literal king of the hill on top of what Melee already is, sort of a king of the hill game anyway. But I think that if you were to target the player as compared to targeting the rules, that would be your fast and easy fix. But then you have to be a TO who's operating in the subjective zone of the rules, because I'm sure most of the standard rules that Melee tournaments use say TOs have discretion to be able to say you're legitimately trying to not play the game, we're going to DQ you. But the first TO to do that is going to get lit up on Twitter, and then all these people are going to come out of nowhere saying, oh, TOs just hate players and TOs suck. It's going to just, nobody wants to be that TO. So I understand why it hasn't really been the case before where somebody said, okay, you both just got to get DQ'd. We can't be going on Yoshi's story and getting 23% damage each doing ties. We just cannot do this. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, not to spoil anything major from the documentary, but there was a case at Don't Park on the Grass between Michael and Bananas where they both literally did not put an input in on their controller. They just went 0-0, didn't touch the GameCube controller, and as a show of defiance, ended the game 0-0, forced Doc's peace. In which case, Bananas knew this and knew that if Michael didn't interact to that level, and if it went down to 0%, 0% for all 3 games for ties, the rule set defines that you both get DQ'd. Like, that's how it goes. It's defined as like tournament stalling or tournament or neglect to play or something like that. And so in a case like that where you go to extra time, it's if they go 0-0, 4 stocks apiece, and they just don't play, and it goes to extra time where you go to the 1 stock 0% and have that 1 stock match, and you don't play that, you both get DQ'd. So during the tiebreaker, the 1 stock game, and then you still don't play, you both get DQ'd if you were to tie in that situation. So in order to combat that, Bananas forced Michael into the 1 stock situation and then forced him to approach him, because otherwise he would have lost as well. So there is a rule set in place for that. It's just for very, very extreme cases. Unfortunately, I think for the benefit of the Melee community, we've only seen that situation once, and it was at the behest of Bananas to exploit the system in his in his favor for a change.
Bananas was the protagonist of that story. Sorry to say. Sorry, I
yeah,
came
Bananas
with that.
definitely
Okay.
is.
In this very same tournament, we're talking about Low Tide City. Palpa has to play against SDJ on the loser side of top 8. And what does Palpa do? Instead of doing the Puff Ditto, which was going to happen, Palpa is a Puff, SDJ is a Puff, Palpa actually decided to go with Fox, the Fox secondary, and actually won that set. What if...
Palpa?
It is. What if we just say, look, we know the data. We know what you're going to do. You can't play your main. Oh, I would love that. Just to like watch everybody, all the floaties start to squirm like, oh my gosh, you're going to make me play my not main. Oh no. I don't have a secondary. No, I'm kidding. Everybody who plays Melee long enough has a secondary. Come on, we all got pocket characters. But I was just saying, 2 different examples. One where it's a little trashy. It's so scummy. I don't like 45-minute sets most of the time, especially when it's not in top 8. Because I can handle LOD and Hungrybox. I can handle that. But I don't know if I could handle hearing about this and holds up the schedule, this, that, and the third. Or you could be like Palpa. So to the Melee community, be more like Palpa. Shout outs to Palpa.
Be like Palpa. I love that. And speaking of amazing performances, people picking up secondaries, winning sets. I want to give a micro shout out to Nut at the SoCal Arcadian. Um, and on someone recorded it on his round one opponent, JV5's his round one to make his way through into to start his tournament in the winners bracket. I don't know. I think he got top 8. I believe it was God, the Melee Stats tweet came out. I can find it. But I know Cliche got third, but shout out to not forgetting a JV5.
Steech won the SoCal Melee Arcadia.
Steech, it was Steech, you're correct.
Who, by the way, SF, shout outs to SF. SF remembered about the fact that a while ago, sometime in 2021, was tweeting the disparity of West Coast pools, East Coast pools. Is it really fair for Zane to play against Ryobi to make winner's side top 64 versus Mango, who has to go against Steech? IDK, who that is, by the way, no offense. And Steech just retweets that and says, offense taken.
That's epic. That is so epic. But yeah, I do remember that tweet. And yeah, the East Coast pools are always insane. No offense to them, but IDK, that is me a year ago. Yep, there it is. CPU Zero. And the same tweet, CPU Zero winning Revival, beating Blues Clues to his formerly Texas's best Peach. And Neek, and then of course Pip Squeak, of course, winning Low Tide City as we discussed earlier.
And we should give a shout out to Melee Stats because they are going to be doing some kind of a merch drop soon. The people in the Melee Stats Discord wanted to know. Pip Squeak was wearing some nice Melee Stats merch, somehow not available to the public. So keep an eye on that. Follow Melee Stats. You already get really cool stuff like what happened last night at Melee, who won all these big events, but also for video drops and merch drops and podcast drops. I mean, I don't want to get anybody confused here. I love Waiting for Game and other Melee podcasts that are out there in the world. So I listen to Waiting for Game. Those are fun too. It's really cool. It's really cool that Pip Squeak gets this opportunity and did not necessarily, I don't want to say Pip Squeak fumbled the bag at events like Pound or anything like that, but this is so validating when you a collective of grassroots people who are trying to build something a little bit here saying, you know what, let's sponsor a player. And then Pip Squeak does not do super great at Pound. You go, uh-oh. But then to turn it around all nice and quick and to win very dominantly to the point of only dropping one game, perhaps the whole tournament, if I recall correctly, if I saw correctly from Pip Squeak, who also then tweeted, I go back and watch my sets and the VOD, and I see all these cheater posts in Twitch chat, and it's just really, really discouraging. Yeah. Because there's been a little bit of discourse recently. I think ever since the Bobby Big Balls clip where he's the zip
cheater, zip zip.
There's been a little bit of the and you know what? To give credit, Fives, who is another player somewhere in the realm of Texas, went to Low Tide City. Fives is a box player who told me a while ago, even before the Bobby Big Balls clip, people just say I'm cheating because I play with the box style controller. I think there's just a little bit of disparity between what the GameCube controller does right now, which is crap out on you, like it did with Axe during top 8 at Low Tide City, and that is so sad that happened. He has a backup controller, but you know this better than I do. When you switch from a primary controller that has analog inputs to a backup controller, and it's very different. And you saw Axe SD'd a couple of times during top 8 after he switched to his backup. Just like of little things where you would say, backup controller, that's what that is. And it's so unfortunate. We had Sadax as well this past weekend going, I don't know, I'm just gonna keep trying, but I don't know if I'll ever get back there. And I'm going, no, Axe, it's okay. You just we're on a backup controller. It's okay. Please don't be sad. But the whole thing of that is that, of course, a bunch of buttons could crap out, like at Riptide. Swift's controller against Logan was so bad that was not close. Logan being all excited about the fact that they beat Swift, beating a Pikachu, a Marth beating a Pikachu. That's so cool. But Swift's like at least one or two buttons were just straight up not working on that box he was using that particular day. That can happen. But more often what you hear about is the controller stuff for GCC, for the GameCube controller. What do you think about that whole imbalance as of now? I mean, there's also been discourse around that as well.
I mean, as someone who has literally done it both ways, I have my controller right here.
Yeah, let's go.
I rocked I have an Emerald Blue. I have an awesome OEM. This is a Generation 2 solid controller. Now, I also have a box, which funnily enough at the Colorado Arcading, I don't know how it happened. I don't know if it broke or the
No.
back panel is loose, or someone
Oh
pulled the
no.
most excellent prank of stealing the screws to my box.
What?
So I just don't have the screws to hold it together. So it's literally just like the panel is loose and it's just
Oh
by itself.
no.
So I have a buddy of mine who actually is shout outs to Tricolor with Trailhead controllers. So he does or Trailhead keyboards. I'll find it. Basically, he does box and frame one style and keyboard repair. He's a extraordinarily talented guy, and he ordered me some new screws, and he's gonna fix up my box, which is nice.
Very cool.
And
Very
but I
cool.
will say, like when a button goes out, like there's if you can take apart like the actual arcade style button, there's like these little sensors. When you push it down, it actually senses that the input's there. And sometimes those sensors wear down, or sometimes they stop connecting, or sometimes the wiring gets loose and the connector gets loose and it'll slide off or whatever if you're jumbling it around. If your button goes out, you just straight up can't get that input. So for me, there was a while where like funnily enough, as a Peach player, my C stick down stopped working. So as a Peach main, I can no longer ASDI down or down smash or down air or do
Mhm.
any sort of things like that. I'd have to do A plus, control stick down. And, we don't do that. We want to C stick down and flick down like a monkey. But, yes, of course, the Peach Main's box controller is the first button to break is C stick down. Of course, of course, of course. But anyway, so I had to get a new button. I had to get it replaced. So I had to go on Amazon and buy a new arcade style button and plug out, slap in the new button, and it was good to go. The thing is, if you don't have like extra buttons at a tournament, you don't have someone who can or has them on hand or have the mental wherewithal on how to fix your problem, that can be a huge situation. Whereas, a GameCube controller is a GameCube controller. Of course, there has never been a GameCube controller that ever operates the same as another one, and that's another huge problem in and of itself. But if I were in a situation, I would rather have my OEM controller, my GameCube controller, or analog cell break and be warmed up on that style of controller, and then ask someone to borrow another solid controller rather than have my box break and then have to either ask someone to borrow their fancy box or try to fix it myself. I think it's a different sequence of issues, but more than anything, it's in either case, it's not fun to be on the receiving end of, like, you're mid set with your tournament life on the line, and a button breaks, or something in your controller stops working, or you're working on a secondary controller. It's definitely not fun either way.
So let's see. Aside from all the controller discourse that we've been having recently, we missed out on last week's discourse about how much to have in terms of prize pool for players and this, that,
Mhm.
and the third. But to anybody who didn't somehow watch Aiden's video on it, you should just
Yep.
go watch Aiden. Shout outs to the Yard Podcast. Aiden Gaiman, Aiden Calvin, however you want to say it. Aiden made a really great video talking about all the points, where the most important thing to take away
Mhm.
from that, just real quick to visit it, is if the prize pool somehow was increased in such a way that everyone who entered Pound paid more to play, and then Hungerbox walks away with 1,600 instead of 800, to him, not really much of a difference. He could still make the
Yeah.
same tweet complaining, I only got 1,600 for second place finish, and we would still be talking about it like this. So
Mhm.
it doesn't require necessarily the community throwing in more money on a consistent basis, but it's about how to sell tournaments and the viewership that it
Corporate pot
draws
bonuses, yeah,
to advertisers, yeah,
sponsorships, yeah.
sponsors. Yep.
That's where the real money comes into the top end. And a lot of people are like, oh, I would pay an extra 10, $15 to enter the tournament. I'm already paying X amount of money. I mean, yeah, at the grand scheme of things, that's great. But again, to Aiden's point and to your point specifically, it's like when you're at that top 8 level, especially at a super major-esque event, an extra $800 doesn't make that much of a difference. What does make a difference is securing that extra $1,000 pop bonus, that extra $2,000 pop bonus from Papa John's, Domino's, Pizza Hut, Red Bull, Monster, whoever. And that's also draws in viewers, that draws brand recognition, that draws investment beyond the case of just monetary value, and that helps build relationships to foster our scene to keep growing. And that's what we need, the longevity. Of course, we have that longevity already, but keeping that corporate longevity and the ability to sustain ourselves and to continue running events and continue having that community interaction is more important than anything else.
You know what? I was also just thinking there are probably players who are not Hungrybox who would appreciate having a slightly bigger cash prize for finishing in a certain round. But again, it doesn't help if you are an up and coming player and you can only manage 25th at an event like Pound. You're not making any money. Fiction, Fiction for finishing 7th or whatever it was at Pound got maybe $100, which does not get close to
Doesn't cover
covering
the
the
flight.
cost of
It
getting
doesn't
out there.
cover doesn't cover flight. That doesn't cover hotel. Like one, like getting seventh at a major doesn't even cover your hotel, bro.
So for people who finish 25th, you could just forget it. I mean, yes, sponsorship money. Get those people who say, "Oh, I have stupid amounts of money to spend." I mean, when Elon Musk bought Twitter the other week, I was thinking, $45 billion. That's like, if you had 46 billion, just take the one extra billion out, give it to the Smash community. We could
Do you know how much a billion is?
It's 1 billion seconds. Did you know it takes so many more years than 1 million seconds versus a billion? Yes, I do.
I saw this
amount of
awesome
money.
YouTube video that was like they had like piles of sand and like 1 grain of sand was like $100. And so you get to a million, it's like that's a pretty big pile of sand. And then
Yes.
you get to a billion and it's like an actual just bucket. And you're just like, a billion is so much. Like it's so much. So it's like the fact that Elon Musk can deal in the realms of billions of dollars and he's actually worth trillions of dollars astounds me. And I don't know how that's allowed, but Elon's gonna do what Elon does. And if one day he sees, no L's in art or Had to Gamble featuring PGH Carroll and gets inspired and gets inspired by the Melee community, I would love that. That's what we need to do. We need to start spam adding Elon Musk with PGH Carroll combo videos, and
Either
then
that
hope he watches it
or Squid the
once,
Cat.
and then he gets hooked.
Mm-hmm.
And Squid the Cat, of course. Shout out to Squid
PGH
the Cat.
Carroll and Squid the Cat. I mean, if they ever collab on a combo video, I don't know that most of us would actually be able to take it. I would legitimately be concerned about like my eyes seeing anything afterwards. I would just go, not the same.
I know they so there's a secret Discord called the Creative Melee Discord, which even myself, with a very popular comedy, which just broke 5K views, by the way.
Let's go.
Which
Hey, Hada on YouTube.
It's actually comparable to a lot of Nico's combo videos, Ryo Beats. So big ups to that. Nico's the man, actually. So I mean, pat myself on the back with that one. But anyway, I'm not invited to that. So it is that level of exclusive. And when Ludwig had a combo video contest, and EGH Carroll, who's the officiator of the Creative Melee Discord, had the Discord submit clips as a team, like a team Taj. And it's called Lud Pay My Rent, and it's actually phenomenal. It's a very, very good video, and it flew under the radar pretty heavily. It's to the tune of Hands Clap by God, what song? I Can Make Your Hands Clap. Everyone knows that song.
But I do remember seeing that, and I thought, oh, this is so cool, but I was not deep enough in the sauce to truly appreciate it, I would have to say. Or either that, I was really distracted with the big tournament that was going on at the time. I don't think it was LACS 4. Might have been LACS 3 at the end of 2021. I think so. Okay, well, we're running out of time, so let's make sure to tell the people where to find us. So basically, you can find me at Cypher003 on Twitter, but also if you want updates specifically related to the podcast, at BSM Pod, and that's how you can find YouTube. That's how you can find Patreon. That's how you can find pretty much everything that I'm on for BSM Pod. Just look that up on whatever, and you'll find us just about everywhere for podcast platforms, for YouTube and the such. Also, Spotify now, you can watch the podcast episodes on Spotify. You don't have to use YouTube anymore if you don't want to.
Yeah, I did notice that. I was what was I doing this past weekend? I was like out and about, and I was like listening to the episode you did with Justin Dark Gen X and live at Pound, which was so cool. There was a little bit of ambient noise, but I really, really thought that was amazing. and a lot of great content. So guys, please go check out that episode of the pod. And I was changing apps or something, and I'm like, is the video there? That's kind of cool. So
Pretty
yeah, the
wild.
video is officially on Spotify. So that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I didn't want to get too far away from making sure that we promote your stuff, but seriously, for that episode, I was thinking, do I want gamer noise or do I want tractor noise for interviewing Justin? And I decided, you know what, tractors. I feel like this is going to work out better. Plus, we were able to have our masks off. I would have insisted on masks on. He would have felt the same way,
Mhm.
being inside the venue since mask on was the rule. So I thought, I don't have professional equipment. I don't care. I'll just so many tractors, dude. All right.
Yeah.
Where can the people find you, Hada?
Yeah, hey, I'm at Hey Hada on just about everything. So that's the YouTube, that's the Twitch, and or that's the Twitter and the Twitch. I think on YouTube it's just Hada. I'm pretty
Oh.
sure. So if you want to go check out my YouTube content, I don't upload all that often. I want to start doing more. Plans for my YouTube. I want to start doing more volleyball content. So shout out to Battery, by the way. So I might start following in their footsteps again. Check out the episode of the pod. We have a future
Ooh.
professional volleyball player in the Melee community who's an amazing editor. But yeah, I might start doing more volleyball content. I might be doing a little more combo videos, some more interactive stuff with other creators. But yeah, that's basically it, guys. Go watch Delay 2020, a Melee Peach combo video. It has 5K views now, so it's pretty cool.
Yes,
Great
and
editing.
coming
Also,
your
shout out
way
to
very
turning out for
soon.
Walt.
Brought to you by the state of Colorado and Hey Hada. You can catch some doubles pro-am stuff in the near
Yeah,
future, so keep an eye
that'll be
out
really
for that.
sweet.
And we will see you next week. Thank you so much, Hada.
All right, bye guys. Have a good one.